Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our flight to Mexico City. My name is Carole Hopson, and I'll be flying you there today. The thing I wanted to do more than anything was to fly a plane. I went to flight school, and in a year, I went from one flight hour to being a flight instructor. I had never been happier. And then September 11th happened, and that event made me reprioritize. I built a life that focused around my family. I blinked, and a decade had gone by, 14 years. And I realized it was now or never to go out and get a job where I was a pilot for an airline. I believe I'm able to do what I'm doing today because of all of the women who came before me. And I wrote a book, historical fiction about Bessie Coleman. No one would teach her to fly in the United States. She had to risk it all and go to France to learn how to fly. And if she could do it 100 years ago, I could do it. I got here because of General Stacey Harris, Teresa Claiborne, Claudia Zapata, Andrea Weeks. Bessie created that path. My job is to make that path wider. I have a personal goal to enroll 100 Black women in flight school. I hope people who thought this an impossibility now see access. I am living proof that it is never too late to follow your dream.
How amazing is that? She is an author, a writer, a speaker, and a pilot. Let's give it up for Carole Hopson. We're so happy to have you, Carole.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, you all have been sitting, you've been attentive, and I must tell you, coming to University of North Dakota has been an amazing opportunity for me. You all have something here in the middle of the cold. Y'all got something here. With the students who just received that present, would you all stand up? Stand up for me, please. Please stand. I want you all to give these students a round of applause, and students, clap for yourselves. Thank you. Thank you so much. When I was in college, which was a long time ago, we didn't necessarily have budgets. I don't know that we had the courage to be as honest as you students have been today. Thank you. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for being your authentic selves. I love how Steve talked about authenticity. I love how each student revealed about themselves things that makes you vulnerable and things that make you strong. A special thank you to Jordan, who found me online or somewhere and pursued me and called me and emailed me. Somehow he got my cell and he texted me. The texting thing, that's what gets to my heart. You can email me all day long. I sometimes get back to them, but the texting thing, I really pay attention to. And on the way here, my phone died, and I dropped it in a pocket, and we went to go get a new phone last night, and. Thank you all for having me. Thank you very much. Just a couple other thank yous I want to say before we even get started. I've had the greatest pleasure to have breakfast, lunch, and I even think there's a dinner. You guys eat really well here, I want you to know. Maybe it's the cold, I don't know, but you all eat really well here. So thank you very much. And if my United Airlines colleagues could please stand, I'd like to say thank you to them. Poor Effie, I know he's trying to finally have a little lunch. Stand, please. Stand or wave. Thank you. Woohoo! If y'all looking for jobs, United Airlines is hiring. It is an amazing place. If you haven't heard, we got this program called Aviate. It is extraordinary. I'd also like to thank each one of the affinity groups. They're new. That says something to me about your energy, about your enthusiasm, about your strength, and about your resilience. Bring it, because we need all of it. And we need it now. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself and my journey. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about my project and what my plan is. But it's not it's an hour. Because just by being here, sorry about that, y'all are enrolled in my project. How about that? And then my other goal is to do a little bit of reading. And this is not a bedtime story, so anybody who sleeps, yes, I'm going to come off that stage and wake you up. None of that. Oh, and before we get started, would my friends from OBAP, University of Nebraska, Omaha, please stand? Come on, up you go. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I think there was some Facebook post or something like that, and that's how UNO came about, and they said, we're coming up and join, and this is an amazing time to see this room filled with people. And yes, I know you're here because of Aviation 100. I know that's why y'all are here. And I got these questions, so you got to answer them. I'll try to make sure I make your test easy for you. But I'm going to tell you something about aviation. Often we get the test before we get the lesson. I'm going to say that for the people in the back of the room. Often we get the test first, and we get the lesson next. Bessie Coleman got the test first. She learned the lessons and passed them on to all of us. All right, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Then I said we'll talk about the book. Then I'll do a little bit of reading. And you all are all ready. And then I promise to answer questions for you on your homework. Okay, I heard a thank you out there. All right, here's the story. So when I was a little girl, I wanted to fly airplanes. I didn't know anybody who looked like me who flew an airplane. I know any girls. I know anybody black. I know anybody who was black, a girl, and wore eyeglasses. No one. I was born in 1964. Turn that off. No, I'm just kidding. I was born in 1964, and this is what it looks like. It looks great, if I say so myself. And why do I say so? Because I love what I'm doing. I fly the Boeing 737 for United Airlines. I've waited my whole life to say that sentence. And it feels great every time it comes out of my heart, not just my mouth. So fast forward, I become a swimmer in high school. I was really good at the 200, and I was the best woman on the end of the anchor. That's just what I love to do. I was a swimmer. And I have all this hair, so I would take it and pile it up and put my swim cap on top, because back then you had to wear a swim cap. And I looked like Conehead, and it made me aerodynamic. And I swam and swam and swam throughout high school. The summer before I graduated early from high school, I was hit by a car. The car that hit me was a hit and run. It was almost as though I were a squirrel or a rabbit, and the guy drove off. So happened it was at the University of Pennsylvania's campus, and two young men jumped off the side of the brick wall where they were eating lunch. One grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and moved me, and the other ran off after the car. I did not talk about that for over 30 years. And I talked about that at my United Airlines interview. A man, Joe Cook, Captain Joe Cook on the Airbus at United, was my pilot interviewer. And he asked me a question. He said this: tell me about a time when you suffered something so great that it took everything that you had and have to come back. How did you come back? And as a result, who are you? Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. I always said this: I will cry before I die at work. I don't cry at work. I cry like a baby sometimes outside of work, but not at work. And my lip started trembling. Now remember, well, actually, you don't remember because I haven't told you yet, my journey to get there, right? And here I am, my lips quivering. Well, by the time I finished telling them the story of how I was hit by the car, left literally in the gutter, and the car drove on, as though I were roadkill, the two of them started crying. I was like, no, please don't cry. It's my interview. You guys keep it together and hire me for United, please. I'm going to tell you about when high school finished. There you go. So I'm back on track. I was headed to the University of Virginia, and I had half of my scholarship was academic. I've always been a very good test taker. And so my tests, at the time we did the ACTs, what's the other standardized test? You guys are in college. What'd we do? What'd y'all do? ACT, what else? What's the other one? Yeah, the SAT, all that stuff. All right, so I did all of those. I can't remember what the heck they were, but I did really well on them. And so I had a huge academic scholarship. Back in the 80s and the 90s, women athletes did not have automatic scholarships. And so you had to try out once you got to your university, and that was my plan. I turned 17 that summer. I was going to take the world by storm. I was hit by that car. That summer, I recuperated, and when that cast came off of my right leg, from my hip, my knee, and my ankle, which were all broken, to go to college broken was really a challenge. Put that in your mind, because I'm going to talk to you about that when we get to Bessie Coleman, about being broken. One of the things I loved about all of these panelists was that they were so honest with themselves, with you, vulnerable about how it feels to be different. And let me tell you something, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You don't know about diversity and inclusion until you've been excluded. It's hard to define inclusion unless you've been outside. So, off with college, I go through college, I get through, and I come out, and one of my first loves has always been writing. And so I was a newspaper reporter, and the job that was available was a police reporter. So in the beginning, I would get nauseous when I would report on some of the stories that I did report on. And at the end, my question was, who's buying lunch? I had changed. I had changed because the stimulus was equal to the reaction. And I would write 5 and 6 stories a day for my newspaper. It was a hustle. It was a job. I've always been hungry. I've always been, very, very eager. I did it. After that, I did a story, my 7th year of reporting, about a young woman who was violently raped. She was murdered, and she was put in a large sack and jumped on her grandmother's walkway. It changed my life. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't just write about people's tragedies. I couldn't do it. I felt like a voyeur. I didn't feel like I was helping. I felt like I was watching. I felt like I was watching degradation. And now, right now, at our history, this moment in time, we're not just talking about North Dakota or the United States. We're talking about the world. What I love about this room full of people is your enthusiasm. What I love about this room full of people is your enjoyment, and you're wrapping your arms around what we can change in this world to make it better. Don't lose that. Don't get wrapped up in, all of the posts and all that stuff and take your energy and put it into what you're doing now, and it will bear fruit. I promise you. Let me finish my story and prove that to you. So, on I go, and my company sponsored me to get my master's degree from Columbia University, and I got my master's in journalism, arguably one of the best schools in the world for journalism. That skill I use every day. I'm going to get back to that. I left after that story. I left shortly after that, and I went to the National Football League. And I worked for the NFL, getting professional players back into school and jobs during the off-the-season. I saw that look, yes, and that the NFL was all that. Yes, it was. It was. It was a wonderful place, but it was a place for me to learn to get a job for myself. And I did. I left there and I went to Foot Locker. I started as an EEO officer. What's that? Equal opportunity. All the stuff we're talking about now. And we would investigate. You got to remember, we had 5,000 stores, 145,000 employees. People work very close together. It was retail. You have bad actors, you have good actors, right? And so what we did was we investigated some of the worst things about the company. And out of that came great things, good strategies on training that we should do to help people be better. So there was a job, and I went to the training department, and after that, there was another job in training department, and another, and another. And by the time about 6 or 7 years that rolled around, five years rolled around, I was a vice president director of all training and development for Foot Locker stores in the United States, and we worked with Canada, Mexico, Japan. I did a lot of work in Amsterdam. We opened up stores in Mexico. I had 3 offices, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I had manpower planning. I started a corporate university. I was busy. I loved my job. I loved my boss. I loved my handpicked team. I loved what I was doing. Now, you've heard the imposter syndrome, right? That's kind of common, right? We talk about the imposter. So what is that? That means that you're pretending. Well, I must say, I wasn't pretending, honey. I was working, just like I always do. I was working. But I was masquerading. It's different. That's a new thing. See, now look, I'm going to say it here, and you guys are going to see it everywhere, right? Masquerading. I was masquerading. I loved what I was doing, but I wasn't doing what I felt like I really should be doing. I met a man in the subway who I had gone to college with, and he said, how about lunch? He was pretty good looking, so I said, how about dinner? And we had dinner. And during dinner, he said to me the following: what do you want to do with your life? What's your heart's desire? Tell me. And I said, well, somebody's around here granting wishes. Fine, I'll tell you. But if I tell you and you laugh at me, I will never see you again. Actually, I think what I said to him was something like, if I tell you and you laugh at me, you'll never get any of this. I now watch you. I saw you smile. I was talking about my mental energy. I don't know what you were thinking about. So this is what I said to him. I said, I was 30 years old. And I said, I want to fly an airplane. I want to fly an airplane. Gosh, I let it out of my mouth. I actually said it. I want to fly an airplane. It seemed ridiculous, even to me. I was a corporate executive. I had done things that people told me I could never do. I was already doing them. I made 6 figures a year. We had 2 stock purchase plans at our company, our Fortune 100 company. I had preferred stock. I had common stock. I was doing stuff, but I wanted to do something else. So a couple weeks later, we were having dinner again. And he said, I cook, you clean. It was one of the 11 meals that he's made me in 26 years. So, you know, what are you going to do? Anyway, he does a lot else besides cook, I must say. And I picked up my placemat, and under my placemat was an envelope. And in the envelope, I'm getting to it, I promise, gift certificates to go fly a plane. And I went to Teterboro Airport. And it took 45 minutes for us to get off the ground. Oh, my gosh. And when we did, I felt like I finally knew what I was born to do. Oh, my gosh. Came back that evening, and he said, tell me, what was it like? And I said, well, you might not like this, but I think it was just orgasmic. He said, you think that's orgasmic? I said, I think that's orgasmic. He said, well, what are you going to do with this? I said, I'm quitting my job, and I'm going to go to flight school full time. He said, oh, not that good job. I was like, yeah, that good job. I'm going to quit it, go to flight school. He said, well, hold on. Let's create an exit strategy. I said, exit strategy? What the heck is that? He said, we're going to get you out, but slowly. We're going to extract you and make a plan. Part of that plan was to go to another company, L'Oreal Cosmetics. I went. It's a signing bonus, large salary, head of human resources for Cranberry, New Jersey, and we built a distribution center in Aurora, Colorado. And I headed up all of human resources, hired people for that facility, helped to not necessarily build it, but in the construction and how we would orient that building. So when I went out there, I was like, to the west, the mountains, got it. And then, of course, I work for United. And every time I go, I look at those mountains. They're all special. Anyway, having said that, it was an amazing opportunity to quit my job and go to flight school full time. And when I did, my family, my friends, they said this to me: you have lost your mind. You're going to leave a 6-figure-a-year job, and you're going to go and make $17 an hour. You have lost your mind. And no, I didn't. I found it. For the first time, I found it. I did what I thought was best. Went to flight school, just knocked it out the park. Started in September of 2000. By June of 2001, 8 months later, I was a CFI. Yeah, that's right. I'm not playing, right? So here's what happened. June 2001, July, August, September 11th. September 11th. And my husband said to me, by now we're married. We live in New Jersey. Yes, I moved to New Jersey from Manhattan so I could fly a plane. I really meant business. We should have children because the world is ending. I think all guys say that. We did. September 17th, I was pregnant. I told you we do things fast around here, right? September 17th, I'm pregnant. I gained 140 pounds with that baby. I weighed just under 300 pounds. Today, his name is Joshua Hopson. He's 6'8". I'm not going to tell his weight while your camera's running. My other son, his name is Coleman. I did not name him. My husband did. Coleman. And he's full of so much salt, just like Bessie Coleman. And he's 17. They're both basketball players, good students. I had them one after the next. I gained 140 pounds. I lost it in 1 year. We went away to celebrate. I got pregnant again. I was age 40. We had this other baby, gained 80. It's all numbers. It's all numbers. My life in numbers. 3 years, 2 babies. I couldn't leave them. I was a reluctant parent, but I was a grateful, grateful parent. And once I had those 2 boys, I found that there was a love greater than what I thought was my most love, my biggest love, my husband in flying. I found the love of my 2 children. I stayed at home for 14 years. 14 years as a flight instructor. Told you I cried. 14 years as a flight instructor. Most of you will do a year or 2 years as an apprentice, as a flight instructor. And you'll love it, but you'll run away from it as fast as you can. I spent 14 years doing it. And I also spent 14 years writing a book about Bessie Coleman. So let me tell you, go back to that exit strategy. Back then, you had to go to the library to learn about women in aviation. Look at his face. The library. The library. To learn about women in aviation and OBAP. And I went, and when I went, I had a little card, and you had to fill it out and mail it in, and then they mailed you something back, and that was your registration. And I went in March to Women in Aviation, and it was amazing. And I found a woman named Captain Jenny Beatty, or rather, she found me. And Captain Beatty said to me at the end of 3 days of job expo and palling around together, I have a present for you. And it was a coffee mug, and it was wrapped up. And when I opened that coffee mug, it was a picture of Bessie Coleman on the front and 50 words on the back that changed my life. 50 words about Bessie Coleman. I was 34 years old. I had never heard of Bessie Coleman. I had a college degree, an Ivy League master's degree, arguably a well-read black woman. I had never heard of Bessie Coleman. How could that be? Fast forward, I have my children. My husband and I are in a corn maze with the boys. We pop out and we see an airplane way across the field. And my husband says, oh my goodness, I think that's a Stearman. I said, that's right, that's a Boeing Stearman, 1941. He said, and the other? I said, it's a Waco, Washington Aviation Company, 1942. He said, oh my God, I love a girl who loves the planes. Oh man. We go all the way across the field. We get in the airplanes. The guy lets us sit in there. And my little boys are going like this. mowing down cows, right? And I knew at that moment I had to do something with this little bit of knowledge I had about Bessie Coleman. I had to make that real. Because there was an amazing book written by Doris Rich. It was lovely. Every one of you in this room would read it. But would our spouses, would our friends, would they take it to the beach and read it with them? Would it be a book that would make Oprah's list? I wanted to do that. It took 12 years to do it, 12 years. But I had time because I was raising my children. And so I wrote this book. I started as omniscient narrator. I couldn't get close enough. Then I made all the women who I met in my research one woman. And she was Bessie's counterweight, where Bessie was adventurous. Or as, what was it? Who was it said the word? Did you say the word, Steve? Who said, oh, no. The man, you're brilliant too, Steve, don't forgive me. The man from Cirrus, he said adventuring. Where is he? That gentleman, maybe he left for a bit. But adventuring. While Bessie was adventuresome and adventuring, her best friends were always counterweights. They were quiet. They were busy building home. They were black women of the 20th century who sewed, who cooked, who cleaned, who sang, who were the backbone of this country, who were uncelebrated, who worked. I knew something about work. I worked 3 jobs in college. I was always busy. I was always working. I loved to work. I work. I was from those women. My mother was like that. My aunts were like that. And so this book sprang to life. My goal was then to make this book something that you couldn't put down. And so after, oh my goodness, so many attempts, I wrote it as a first person. And writing the book as a first person meant I had to be vulnerable. I had to tell the truth about myself. I had to then embody some of what she went through. So the goal is the book is a historical fiction about Bessie Coleman. I'm going to read to you one little paragraph, and our time is almost over. I'll stick around for any questions, to sign books, anything at all. I would like to be a part of this UND family. There's something very special here. And I must say, I'm sure Bessie would have liked you all too, quite a bit. All right, so I've asked Jordan to read 3 sections and to pick one. I have many readings, and I like to kind of feel the crowd before I do a reading. And then I asked Jordan to make sure I was on point. So here's the reading. The book is divided into 5 chapters. Starts with a terrible accident that Bessie Coleman has in 1923. In this accident, she breaks her femur. Her femur, your femur, our femur, any human being's femur, is this. It's the longest, strongest bone in the human body. When I was hit by that car, my femur was fractured. That's how hard the car hit me. My own femur. I get this. Chapter 1, or part 1 it is. I never did get the chance to finish college, not to mention joining Alpha Kappa Alpha. By the end of my first semester, boll weevils had struck the cotton crop back home. There was no more money, not even enough for me to complete my freshman year at Langston. On the day I was set to leave, Norma, her best girlfriend, handed me a package. Here, I made this for you. It's a going away present. I wept as I took the package from her hands. I am so ashamed I won't be able to finish college, and worse, I am leaving you all by yourself. My mama and the girls needed me, Bessie said. But how in the world could I leave you, Norma? You'd be alone again. Don't say anything else, Norma hushed. As tears formed in her eyes, just go on, open it. I untied the string and folded back the paper. Inside the bundle was the most exquisite gift I have ever received. In our housekeeping and fabrics course, Norma's final project had been a quilt. The assignment was to make a quiltlet. And just as the slaves had done before us, it had to tell a story. It could be a coded map of the North with abstract symbols, which, when decoded, pointed a slave toward freedom. Or through patchwork, the piece could tell an ordinary person's life story. Technique was graded. And while applique, backstitching, basting, batting, and bearding counted, it was a story that was paramount. I hadn't noticed right away, but little by little, a shirt here and a nightgown there had gone missing from my sad wardrobe. One by one, Norma had spirited away a few items of my clothing that really were too threadbare to miss for long. With just scraps of my garments, Norma had begun to tell my story and had begun to write my future. Her Christmas gift to me was an oracle. My raggedy blue nightgown was transformed. It became sky. A skirt had been turned into borders around circle loops, and inside each circle was a tattered flower from a shirt I had worn way past its prime, and cloud-white patches from her own sacrifice sheets floated above. My sad, pale pink slip was reborn as the rectrices of a bird's tail. Without my knowing, Norma had sent away for a piece of deep blue velvet corduroy. That rich midnight sky became the backing fabric, and from the only other possession she owned from her dead Buffalo soldier father, his black and white bandana, a strip trimmed from its edging, created the outline of the fuselage of the airplane. I had confided in Norma my secret desire to fly, and this quilt was her way of telling me that I would do so. This was the treasure that had inspired me to spend so much on the one piece of furniture I would own in Chicago. My big brass bed was more than a place to sleep. It was a place to showcase the story of my future beneath that quilt. Beneath that quilt, I dreamt of flying. When I woke each morning, before I did anything else, I'd make my bed, allowing myself an indulgence of time and a prayer of belief. I swept my hand across the precious bandana fuselage every single morning to absorb its strength. I want to say thank you to you. I want to say thank you to you for having the courage to do what you dream to do. And a dream is just something we do while we're asleep. A goal is when you put a date to what you want to do. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for letting me read to you. Thank you so much to United Airlines for buying 100 books. Sue McGrath did that along with every my colleague. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, students, for going out there and being the next. Thank you.